ඉන්නේ.
Nothing cricket can then use can. Open button then cricket can use can.
Okay. Sure නේ. වායක ලෝඩ් කරලා තියෙනවා. කරලා තියෙනවා. යාර ක්ලික් එක දුන්නා මාගේ. Okay. Pin click.
Watch on there.
Yeah. Yeah. Click it. Yeah. Not talking about SMAK. The stuff comes in that small bottle. Not that. So we are talking about social mobile analytics and cloud computing. Now these technologies are not new for enterprises, certainly not new to our personal lives. We have our email, our calendar on cloud. We talk to our family, friends, various other people. We connect with them, collaborate on mobile and social media, etc. But what has been observed in the recent past is once you fuse these technologies together, they have a force multiply effect. They have the capability to transform enterprises and enhance the productivity and the effectiveness of enterprises. So what we are going to do within the next 9 hours, we'll go through 5 very interesting sessions. And we have 31 speakers who have accepted our invitation, who are here with us today to share their knowledge, share their experience, share their wisdom. And I'm sure that the rest of the day is going to be very, very interesting. It is my duty at this stage to recognize those who made this event possible. Sri Lanka Telecom Mobitel, our platinum and title partner. And during your breaks, please visit the Mobitel Business Solutions demonstration area just outside. Get an essence of the array of corporate solutions provided by Mobitel. I'm sure these solutions will add value to your business. Our gold partners, AIA Insurance, a company which has been supporting LBR, LBO events for nearly 15 years. Coca-Cola and Microsoft, our gold and airline partner, Sri Lankan Airlines. Our silver partners today, CIC, Virtusa, Intuition, and Iron One. Media agency partner, Media Factory Group, print partner, corporate and print advertising partner, Daily Mirror and
fastest growing mobile 4G LTE network in Sri Lanka. Mobitel, we care, always.
Gold sponsor.
Never stop persevering. No matter what happens in life, we believe in never giving up on what's important to you. AIA Insurance, the real life company.
Honestly, I'm not looking for 5-star treatment. I get times are tight, but it's hard to get any work done like this. Then came this baby. Small, but with Windows and Office. It runs my work stuff, and I can use apps like Flipboard for news or Xbox Video to watch the shows I'm never home to see. And I can still get work done at the same time. Excuse me, do you mind if I... Yeah.
School is out, the summer's in. You and I, we smile and we begin. Sweet summer harmonies. Come cuddle close to me, 'cause I know we'll never know until we learn to love. Until we learn to love.
Silver sponsor.
Investing in an ERP typically involves purchasing modules, which often include features you don't even need. Why pay more to complicate your tasks? Well, we have the solution, Intuition. It's a new concept based on process journeys. Simply, you purchase and use only what you need. As your company grows, Intuition grows with you. Scale up only when you need to. Access the user-friendly dashboard and helpful analytical tools wherever you go. It's simple to purchase and simple to implement. Make real savings and simplify your business with Intuition.
BoardPack, the leader in iPad board meeting automation. BoardPack, the leader in iPad board meeting automation. A product by Iron One Technologies.
Print media partner.
අද බෝනස් වගේ. එදාගත්ත ලෝන් එකට. Thank you මචං. See you later. Thanks මචං. ඉවරක් කිව්වම්.
Vijay Newspapers, helping shape opinions.
මේ ඔක්කොම එකයි මචං.
Print partner.
Thank you. So we once again recognize the contribution by our platinum and title partner, Sri Lanka Telecom Mobitel, our gold partners, Microsoft, AIA, Coca-Cola, gold sponsor and airline partner, Sri Lankan Airlines, and silver partners, CIC Virtusa Intuition, Iron One, and our media agency partner, Media Factory Group, print partner, Corporate Image, and print advertising partner, print media partner, Daily Mirror and Daily FT. A few things about a conference summit. Few rules. Rule number one, never switch off your mobile phone. And you know, most of these conference, organizers, they harass you. They don't want you to use your mobile phones. Now, we want you to have your mobile phone on. You will be interacting. Those who have attended our conferences know that you interact with these sessions. Okay, you post your comments and you post your questions. There is a, please turn to the page number 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. Last page of the agenda. You will see a Mobitel number. And if you're making a very big mistake, if you're not using mobile number, I'm sorry about it. And I urge you to switch over from other networks to Mobitel. So use that Mobitel number, very reliable, service provider, and use that number to, engage with the content. You can also use, please write down the hashtag. Hashtag is #ENTSUM14. So you can tweet us. When you're tweeting, it is hashtag is #ENTSUM14. You can also visit our Facebook/LBO/LBR and make your comments. Thank you so much. So that's about it. One more thing, the second rule is time management. We try to adhere to our time schedules. So please be on time, back on time, sooner after the breaks. So once again, a very warm welcome to all of you and a very warm welcome to all our speakers, and enjoy and be inspired. Could I now invite speakers of the session 1 to come on stage, please. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure and privilege to welcome speakers of the first session. My immediate left is Heather Emsley from Microsoft Asia Pacific. Then we have Udena Vikramasuriya from Brandit. And we have Rohan Mutaya, CIO of Commercial Bank, Sri Lanka's best and the #1 private bank. That is until I invite Jonathan Alas in the next session. Then we have Keith Moder, and of course, Trihan Pereira from JL Morrison. And our chair today in the first session is Lavidi Silva, a very well-known technologist. We are not going to read the bio. I believe that you have seen their biodata because as I said, we are a content-focused company. We don't have drama. I'm sorry that we didn't have beautiful girls mesmerizing you, dancing. We straight cut to the content. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and welcome our first session speakers. Over to you, Lavi.
Please go. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. It would be great if mics were on the cloud, then this would be much easier to do. Heather, if you please welcome to the session, and I'll reserve my commentary to the minimum. And if you could address the audience, that would be great. And we'll take questions later. Thanks, Heather. Welcome.
Good morning, everyone. Sorry, where's my presentation? Ah, there we go. I can see it on there. Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you firstly to everyone here today for having me in your home country, Sri Lanka. It's my first visit here. I'm originally from South Africa, but based in Singapore, so it's fantastic to be exploring the region, and it's even more special to be in Colombo, Sri Lanka today. So thank you very much. So talking. Sorry, the clicker's not working. So, sorry, Lakshman, I can't even see my presentation on the screen. There, okay. Okay, just watch it there. Okay. So we live in a connected world, and I think this is ever more present as we continue, as each day progresses. If I think about when I joined Microsoft 8 years ago, the way I engaged with the organization, the way I worked, is I had a mobile telephone and I got a calendar, and if I was lucky, I had email that synchronized via the mobile network. If I fast forward to 8 years down the line, my mobile devices become my everything, but not only from a business perspective, from a personal perspective as well. If I look at what I do on a day-to-day basis on my mobile phone, yes, I do mail. Yes, it keeps me up to date from a calendar perspective. But from a social element, I have access to my Facebook presence. I leverage LinkedIn. I access my other social networks and communities that I'm a part of. I also then access documents and various other content that is available delivered through the cloud. So just in that 8-year period, we've really changed the way that we're addressing technology, or the way that we leverage technology. Sorry about that. Thanks. Okay, we're going in the wrong direction here. Just to give you a view in terms of some of the statistics out there, 6.8 million people across the world are using smart devices or are on mobile. Sorry, that's billion, not million. We're having a discussion earlier. Within the Sri Lankan market, about 20% of people are now using smart devices. That is up, I think, from about 14% a couple of years back. 1.7 billion people use social. And social's not just about Facebook, it's about Twitter, it's about engaging and in a real-time basis, leveraging various technologies. We see on average 400 million plus tweets a day from various elements. This was a startling fact for me, but I can actually see it in my own behavior. Most people access their phone 150 times a day to get information or to see what's going on. So how do we as an organization, or how do we as businesses start addressing this? What do we need to start thinking about in terms of addressing strategy and thinking about how we move our businesses forward in order to meet the demand or meet this upcoming technology trend? If we look at it, we can basically group this into 4 mega trends. So firstly, on mobility, looking at the move towards mobile devices and that's not only about a mobile phone, it's looking at tablets, it's looking at other means of communication. But if we really drill into this, if we look at the up-and-coming generation, or the millennials, most of them are born with a mobile phone in their hands. They've grown up with that technology. So ignoring a mobile strategy could be fatal towards our organization. Social. Now, social, once again, I'm going to say it is not about a Facebook page. It's good to have that presence, but it's also about leveraging this new channel to engage our customers, but also engage our employees. If we really want to attract good talent around from the millennial base, we need to provide solutions that allow them to engage the way they engage in their social capacity in order to get the most out of them. Thirdly is cloud. Now, cloud is a big buzzword, but this is really about leveraging mass compute areas to get total cost of ownership down and being able to react to market requirements quickly. So cloud is the third area. And last but not least is analytics. There's going to be a detailed session later around analytics, but really what we need to think about is with the invent of all this data, social media, networks, data is exploding. How do we make sense of this data? How do we use that data in order to firstly address our customer needs, address our employee needs, and drive our business forward? So essentially, what are these trends leading to? It's basically leading to three key things. Our customers expect more. They want us to respond faster. They don't want to post something and wait 3 days for a response. They want real-time responses there. They want personalized service. We want to know that you know me as Heather Emsley as your customer. They want you to understand who I am as an individual. And they want better experiences. And the experience doesn't necessarily need to be face-to-face. It can be leveraging some of these mobile technologies or cloud technologies to address that experience. Secondly, not only are your customers expecting more, your employees are expecting more. I've alluded to it already, but if we really want to engage the upcoming millennials, attract talent, there are things those individuals want. They want to be part of the process. They want to be able to collaborate within an organization and have the tools to share information, put ideas out there, get feedback, and fine-tune based on that. So they really do want to be part of the process. They want to be empowered. They want to know that they've got access to the data and the information that they need to do their job to better serve our customers. And then last but not least, they want tools that they use in their personal capacity. And this is a big conundrum for a lot of organizations, is how do they provide the latest and greatest within the budgets, with declining budgets. But essentially we need to look at how do we allow the next generation of employees access to the right information at the right time to collaborate through the right devices. Last but not least is around your value chain. They're also expecting more. They want tighter integration. They want to be able to provide you feedback on what's happening in the marketplace and get real-time feedback based on what you are seeing. They want customer insight, and they want quicker turnarounds. So this is what this whole data phenomenon, or this mega trend of SMAC, is really driving from our three key stakeholders as a business. Yet, most organizations that I see today continue to work the way that we always have. We typically still keep the same structures, the same business process. We know that this is happening, but we're not looking internally on how we change our organization. How do we group people together to collaborate better? How do we provide an infrastructure to allow that collaboration? And with that, it then opens up some opportunities for us as businesses. So looking at these opportunities, we've grouped them into 4 key areas. Firstly, in terms of new ways to interact with your customers. Secondly, increased revenue, helping you turn around to market, and increased employee satisfaction. If we look at new ways to interact with the customer, this is really about leveraging these new channels to quickly engage your customers. So if you've got a Facebook page up there, or if you've got a Twitter account or a LinkedIn page, and a customer posts something or puts a request on there, how do we quickly respond to that? I'll give you an example of my personal experience when I was moving out of South Africa. I tried to change my mobile contract. I filled out all the paperwork. When I got to Singapore, it was not right. I used the traditional channel of call center and email, and I got nowhere. I posted it on a social networking page, hoping that because now it was in the public-facing environment, three months later, I would get a response. The response from the telco at the time was 3 days later, telling me they'd respond within 52 hours. I've cancelled that contract. They could have turned that situation around and allowed me to keep my contract going for the next 2-year period while I decided whether or not I wanted to remain, whether I was coming back to South Africa. So leveraging these channels are an opportunity for you to be proactive around your customers. Don't turn around and have this, don't lose customers through the same experience I had. Increased revenues. So by opening up new channels and increasing that customer satisfaction, it's obvious to say that you'll increase your revenues. You can do things by leveraging back-end technologies such as cloud to reduce your TCO and hence increase margins. But also things like if you have a new idea, but it takes too long in the traditional method to roll that out because you need back-end infrastructure, etc. Looking at a technology that cloud or social can bring about can really help you go to market quicker, but also then deliver that at a cheaper cost. That ties into the faster to market. A good example here is with Qantas Airlines. Qantas Airlines implemented an application on Yammer, which is one of our products, for their air hostesses. Basically, their air hostesses have devices on plane. They got real-time feedback from a customer around around a specific meal that they were serving. The air hostess took that feedback, put it in their network, which was then fed back to the catering department. The catering department were able to make that change and turn it around within 3 days so that meal was improved and hence the customer experience was improved considerably in that situation. And last but not least is increased customer satisfaction. I know personally from my perspective, I want to be involved in the process. I want to be collaborative. I want to have input into how the organization is run. If I'm just dictated to and told how to do my job, it doesn't make me really engaged and it doesn't really make me want to participate. So what we're seeing in a lot of organizations, and we had an interesting example from the panel, but by opening up and creating an internal social network for 2 areas, so looking at innovation and potentially looking at HR communications, where you can open up this channel to allow employees to post ideas from an innovation, so from a product innovation. Think of how that can fuel new ideas within your business, get feedback from others, and really talking and collaborating around those new ideas, and then potentially taking that to market. I feel part of the process as an employee, irrespective of where I am in the chain. And secondly, from a communications perspective, if HR just dictates a policy and it comes down to me, it's kind of, I have to take it on. But if they put ideas out there and allow us to collaborate and communicate, give ideas, and then the decision gets made, I'm far more involved in that. So these are really, so that's really a way to look at increasing employee satisfaction and keeping employees engaged. So I wanted to take a step back and give you an example of Zara and how they're leveraging SMAC technologies in their business. Now, is everyone familiar with Zara? If not, I'm going to give you a little bit of an example of who they are. So Zara is a Spanish-based fashion retailer. They take a different approach to putting stock in stores and looking at how they engage with their customers. So they don't do big fancy adverts. They only actually typically would put adverts out in the marketplace twice a year for their big sales. Everything else is around demand generation and word of mouth in the market. But something Zara did is they looked at two key areas of their business. Is they wanted to look at turning fashion around quickly. So for instance, if a pop star stood up in front of the audience and at an award show and had a really funky fashion trend, they didn't want to take 6 months to a year to put that fashion trend in the stores. They wanted to be able to turn that around in 15 days. So what they did is they've organized their business units or their departments, not in a hierarchical structure, but in a value chain structure, so that they can take the concept, plan it, and then move it into production and have it in store within 15 days. Imagine you could do that with new concepts. And they do that through looking at their organization to do that, but they're leveraging various feedback channels. More recently, they've implemented a network that at point of sale, if customers are coming in and asking for a red jacket, they may be asking for a red jacket in the Colombo store, one person there, but in the Singapore store, 5 people have asked, and in the Spanish store, 10 people have asked. They suddenly pick up that traffic on the network and are able to see the increase in demand through that input from the POS, and are able to leverage that same 15-day cycle to get that red jacket into store. So a different way of looking at their organization. The second thing they look at is they really have empowered their store managers. Store managers have a lot of leeway in terms of what is in store, what is in stock, based on their experience. But they're also leveraging various systems, so analytic systems, to understand what sells well. And based on that, they're able to do their ordering and decide which fashion items are going to make it in that store. So just a small example, or not really a small example, it's had a big impact on Zara's business, on how they're leveraging some of the SMAC technologies in order to drive their business forward, engage with customers, and really engage their employees in order to do this. So while I've spoken about the opportunities, there are challenges that SMAC brings about. And this is often, as someone who is a seller of technology, face and hear from our customers every day. The first is regulatory. Now, this is often the first blocker, specifically when we start talking about cloud or leveraging some sort of social media. What I'd like to encourage you to do is don't just stop because you think the regulation doesn't allow. Where we've worked with customers, we've seen that often by understanding the regulation, understanding what is possible and what is not possible, we are able to take advantage of cloud or social media in specific aspects of our business without infringing on regulation. So my real ask here is that you understand what regulation allows, work with your legal colleagues, work with your legal partners to understand that, and see how that can work in your strategy. I had an experience with one of our telcos in South Africa where we were just told, no, we can't move to the cloud. And as I tried to drill into it with them, the reality was, yes, there are data regulations around customer data outside of their own private network. but you are able to segregate your data. And what came out of that was actually the problem was not in leveraging cloud. It was in that they didn't have a strong data governance policy or data classification policy. So they couldn't, because they couldn't segregate their data. So by understanding what the problem is and how you can address it can also help you in that area. Integration into business processes. This is the next area. There's no use implementing an innovation social network within your business, for instance, to allow people to give ideas. If you as the innovation lead aren't leveraging that to respond, to give feedback, etc. We also need so not only having that two-way communication, but when we start adopting some of these technologies to improve the way we want to engage our customers and engage our employees, are we looking at our business process and adapting it to make sure that we integrate it into our business processes? Third, and probably to me is one of the most underlooked, but probably the most critical, is the cultural change. Implementing some of these technologies really require you as an organization to think about how you do business differently, how you engage your organization differently. If we go back to a couple of slides where I had that hierarchy of how things happen, you generally escalate your manager escalates up to his peer, and it goes back down the line if you want to solve a problem. We need to get away from that escalation to manager, but rather look at the way we form communities within our businesses to try and drive that cultural change and leveraging of that technology. Last but not least, and it talks a little bit around, it lends towards regulatory, but security and control. This is a big topic for organizations, and we could probably spend 30 minutes talking about how we address these things. But security and control are critical or often seen as challenges. I'm not in control of my data center. If AZ data provider is hosting my data, doing the patching, I'm not in control. So I think the key thing for organizations to think about when we talk around control is, what control am I prepared to give out? What is a non-negotiable for me? And work with that service provider to allow yourself the necessary control you need to make sure that you are compliant. But then there's also the security element. We hear about security all the time. I think Snowden really did put a big highlight in terms of security. But what we find when we start investigating security and we start dealing with governance areas in organizations, this really is about understanding what security policies are in place for your provider and understanding what you need. We have probably 6 to 7 times out of 10, most customers' data centers are less secure than most service provider data centers because of the rigorous controls and compliance that these service providers need to go after. So really start thinking about security, and while it may seem like a challenge, often the service provider is in a position where they have those stringent controls in place as well. So that gives you a kind of a view on SMAC, some of why it's come about as 4 emerging trends in our current environment, some of the challenges that we face, why we face some of those challenges, what our opportunities are as organizations. But if we really want to think about, okay, so how do I start thinking about this as an organization? Firstly, I'd encourage you as business leaders in the Sri Lankan environment to take ownership. Really, if this is a change you want to make, really believe it and lead that change. Without you at the top leading it, if we continue to do things the way we did it before but expect the organization to change, it's going to fail or it's going to backfire in our organization. Sorry, allow for failure. Just because it fails once doesn't mean it will fail again. Take those learnings and really take them, enhance, and reapply them in your organization. So this really is a leadership thing, and looking at how do you embrace this through taking leadership, own the process, start with something that is meaningful to your organization, and allow for failure and learnings. I want to close off by just leaving you with an area for thought. Most organizations, when they look at social media, analytics and cloud, generally have a strategy for three. They generally have a strategy for cloud, not social media. They generally have a strategy for mobility, and they generally have a strategy for analytics. The area they typically ignore is social. And this can be a real issue for you, in that with the millennials, if you do not start thinking about social in your environment, social will be enforced on you. You could potentially face a scenario where your employees are setting up some sort of social engagement outside of your control, outside of your secure environment, and using that to collaborate and share experiences. So with that, I'd like to thank you once again, and we'll hand back over to Lavi.
I think we have a commercial break coming up, and then we'll take questions.
Platinum sponsor.
Superior online gaming. HD video streaming. Fastest download speeds. Contactability. The fastest growing mobile 4G LTE network in Sri Lanka. Mobitel, we care, always.
Gold sponsor.
Never stop persevering. No matter what happens in life, we believe in never giving up on what's important to you. AIA Insurance, the real life company.
Honestly, I'm not looking for 5-star treatment. I get times are tight, but it's hard to get any work done like this. Then came this baby. Small, but with Windows and Office. It runs my work stuff, and I can use apps like Flipboard for news or Xbox Video to watch the shows I'm never home to see. And I can still get work done at the same time. Excuse me, do you mind if I... Yeah.
School is out, the summer's in. You and I, we smile and we begin. Sweet summer harmonies. Come cuddle close to me, 'cause I know we'll never know until we learn to love. Until we learn to love.
Silver sponsor.
Investing in an ERP typically involves purchasing modules, which often include features you don't even need. Why pay more to complicate your tasks? Well, we have the solution, Intuition. It's a new concept based on process journeys. Simply, you purchase and use only what you need. As your company grows, Intuition grows with you. Scale up only when you need to. Access the user-friendly dashboard and helpful analytical tools wherever you go. It's simple to purchase and simple to implement. Make real savings and simplify your business with Intuition.
BoardPack, the leader in iPad board meeting automation. BoardPack, the leader in iPad board meeting automation. A product by Iron1 Technologies.
Print media partner.
අද බෝනස් වගේ. එදාගත්ත ලෝන් එකට. Thank you මචං. See you later. Thanks මචං. direct කිව්වම.
Vijay Newspapers, helping shape opinions.
මේ ඔක්කොම එකයි මචං.
Print partner.
Well, Heather, thank you very much for that very inspiring and thought-provoking keynote. What I'd like to do is essentially please start sending your questions in to the Mobitel number that was provided. But I'd like to kind of go across the panel and ask a few questions based on Heather's keynote. And I'd like to start by actually quoting another piece of maybe fact. So something that I found out that, the world population is 7+ billion people. And interestingly, there are more smartphones in the world today than there are toothbrushes. So I think that's an opportunity for those people in FMCG. So it's a very interesting statistic when you think about the fact that there are more smartphones in the world than toothbrushes. On that note, one of the other interesting fact is also that when you do a search on a mobile phone, 70% of the time, those searches actually result in some kind of online action. So given that scenario, I would want to ask a few of the panelists, based on what also Heather said, that our customers expect more and want more from today's, that's the customer scenario today. How does this actually translate into your own individual SMAC strategies or tactics? And maybe Rohan, if you don't mind answering that, and maybe Keith, you could also opine once Rohan's done.
Thanks, Ladi. Actually, that particular scenario covers the whole spectrum of SMAC. Let me just give an example here. We all know the numbers with smartphone growth. But let's take a step back here and look what's actually happening right now in our organizations and in our marketplace. Now at our bank, more than 50% of our employees are millennials. I think in Keith's case, at purchase it's 90%. Okay, so even a very traditional type of business such as ours, more than 50% are millennials. Now we know that social and mobile are things that are integral to their lives. right? It's not really up for debate. We know this, we've seen the way they behave. Unless we use social and mobile, we are not going to be engaged either with our employees or with our customers. Now, given the percentages I mentioned, the so-called millennial market segment, it's not a niche market segment anymore. I would suggest that it's the market segment. So we cannot not cater to that segment. Now, also, right now, we are seeing almost record low interest rates, right? But the fact is, it's very difficult to find someone who wants to borrow money. I'm talking banking, of course, here. It's not enough just to go out with low rates and say, look, borrow money. People are not really, it's not resonating with people. It's more like we need to try to find something that they're interested in and then link that with rates, which brings us to analytics. So we need to know something about our customers and go to them with the old marketing principle of AIDA. Capture their attention, get their interest, create a desire, which hopefully will translate to action, which is exactly what you said. They go on the mobile, do a search, they find something, and generally it translates to a purchase. So I think all of these come in under what you just raised.
Keith, maybe your take on that?
Yeah, thanks. So, and I think the way to look at this is absolutely the right way to go about this. There are two key narratives in the whole adoption of SMAC and the technologies around it. The first narrative is really about your customers. And the second is about your employee experience. And I think that's what's driving transformation. It's not just the adoption of the technology, but how do organizations drive competitive advantage with these? And I'll give you two examples that probably bring this home a lot closer. As you know, Virtusa's business is about 60% based on serving the banking financial services markets in the US. And one of our large bank customers, a top 10 bank, recently ran an ad, it's now a couple of years ago, on national TV in the US. And the ad was around a couple on their wedding night opening their wedding gifts. And some of those gifts were obviously, checks. And, the groom pulls out his smartphone, takes a picture of the check, and deposits the check in his or her account. Now, if you think about what that bank has done in terms of providing a service that has completely transformed the customer journey in that space. Banks used to tell us, come to such and such a place during these hours of the day, and I will service you. Then they said, okay, come to such and such a place, 24/7, and I will service you through an ATM. Right, with this feature of being able to deposit your check wherever you are, anywhere and anytime, completely transforms that banking customer experience. And so the adoption of mobility and analytics and all of that good stuff really has been is providing a very differentiated customer experience. And to the points that were made by Heather and Rohan as well, the millennials are demanding that organizations interact with them very, very differently. And if they don't, they will essentially move their service provider. It's as simple as that. The second example was the one about how do you engage your employees? I mean, whether you like it or not, over the next 5 or 7 years, millennials will be, depending on which geography you pick, anywhere between 60 to about 75% of the workforce. And if that's the statistic, then that group is driving economic value and purchasing and so forth, and demand and so forth. So again, it is even more important that organizations can continue to attract these folk into the workplace. And that's really the second narrative. The first was about the customer journey, and the second one is about employee journey, right? Today, if I go around the room, people probably have, more computing power than people had, when they started work, certainly in my generation. And when people join organizations, they are insisting that companies provide them an ecosystem that provides at least as good, if not a better experience than they have at home or on their personal devices. When I started working, I used to wait to go into the office because the office always had better infrastructure than I did at home. But today's context, the Sunday night computing experience is most often a lot richer and better than the Monday morning computer experience for employees. So these groups of millennials and even older folk like myself are called the digital migrants because we are fast following on. We carry the right smartphone product, and we want to partake in all of the advantages of depositing your check using your mobile phone and stuff like that. But the millennials are also looking for a work environment that's dramatically different. I loved Heather's slide that she put up about the hierarchy, right? Communication doesn't happen like that anymore. And it's no longer only building a workplace that, people love to come to. Now it's really about building a workplace where innovation can be recognized, innovation can be tapped at the periphery of the organization, because that's really where innovation takes place, right? In our business, innovation is taking place to the greatest extent between our teams and our customer teams. And so at Virtusa, if you walk into any office around the world, the first thing you see in the lobby is a huge leaderboard. And it'll tell you about the score of the top 5 engineers, the top 5 architects, the top 5 project managers, and the bottom 5 in that location on that day, right? And this was the other aspect of the whole SMAC that's becoming so important, the concept of gamification. Because again, that group, the millennial group, are so used to playing games. Statistically in the US, a 21-year-old has spent 10,000 hours playing games by the time they reach the age of 21. That's more time than you spend from year 7 in high school till you graduate. So the concepts of gamification are deeply ingrained. The second piece is, especially in our business, where we are dealing with intellectual property that belongs to our customers. So you can't open up the whole ecosystem and say, go, post what you like on Facebook or send out Twitters on the basis of, I'm doing this really cool thing, I'm building this cool stuff for XYZ customer. I mean, that obviously can't happen. So, but you have to provide, especially for a knowledge worker, you have to provide an avenue that they can share this stuff, right? So we've adopted a Facebook page, which is internal. It's based on the Microsoft stack, and I'm advertising for Heather here. But it's a tool called Yammer, which essentially allows us to post to our 9,000 employees globally. And it's become a fantastic repository for capturing ideas. If somebody's walking into a client meeting, they can send out a message on Yammer saying, I'm meeting this client. Does anybody have any experience in this industry, right? Now, based on the time zone, you won't have all 9,000 people responding, but you'll have a group of people who will respond and share some insight or idea, right? And it's also providing a fantastic platform for people to be creative, because if you go onto Facebook, you'll never find a bad picture put up by yourself, right? You're always in the best environment, in the best situations and so forth. Somebody else might put a bad picture up, but you certainly don't. So this is also in the industry that we're in, this is providing an opportunity for capturing knowledge and innovation and ideas. And for us, the simple thing is, in our business, it's not about a single visionary and 9,000 helpers. The concept is there are 9,000 visionaries. And if you can create an ecosystem that helps you to tap into that, now you're creating a very powerful enterprise. So, two big sort of narratives. One is the customer narrative and using all of these technologies to transform the customer journey. And the second one is the the employee or the ecosystem that you build inside the organization to attract these very smart individuals who want to have a platform that they can address the chairman and the CEO straight off. Right? So when somebody posts a comment on Yammer at Vitusa, that comment is seen up and down the organization, irrespective of whether it's the most junior engineer who joined day one, all the way up to the chairman, CEO, and the officer team.
So I think, Keith, you bring up a very interesting point about the possibilities, opportunities of SMAC, and one theme that seems to underlie what you just said is around innovation. And maybe Trihan, you could take a stab at explaining what you see as potential for innovation within SMAC as a potential opportunity, if you don't mind.
Sure. I think the SMAC stack is providing a really great base platform for a lot of innovation to happen. Innovation tends to build on top of previous innovative ideas. If you look at the combustion engine, the steam engine, electricity, all lent itself to many new innovative ideas to emerge on the back of that. And if you look at social, mobile, analytics, and cloud, it's doing the same thing. So as much as there can be a lot of innovation in SMAC, it provides the platform and the backbone for a lot of exciting innovation. And I think we see and use many of them today. If you look at Netflix, Netflix uses analytics to suggest which movies you might like to watch, and then stream it to you from the cloud and pick up your comments and maybe post it on social or whatever it is. Amazon does something very similar. It analyzes what books you might like to read. It suggests it. You get to buy it, and then the book is streamed to your Kindle or iPad or whatever it is. You read it, and then you post your comments. So it's providing, and these businesses like Amazon, Netflix, or even iTunes, it's revolutionizing certain industries, and it's providing the base for disruptive innovation. So if you look at Borders, they've gone bankrupt, they've shut down because of Amazon. If you look at Blockbuster, they've gone bankrupt, they've shut down because of Netflix. So there are many industries that are being disrupted through this kind of innovation. And I think SMAC provides that very interesting platform for many of us to think about how we can innovate in our industries and use it as a platform for disruptive innovation.
Udayan, I know that Brandix is a very innovative company, and I know that there is even a new seeding that you've done to create innovators and innovative technologies in the apparel industry. Now, I think the Zara example was kind of interesting. When I first heard the statistics of 15 days from concept to store, that's a pretty aggressive timeline, and I'm assuming if Zara takes 15 days, somewhere in the middle of that, I know Zara is not a customer of yours, but somewhere in the middle of that, somebody's got to actually assemble that garment. So they get less time to do that than Zara does. So in that 15 days is some odd days where there's a manufacturer in some plant somewhere in the world that's actually tasked to deliver on that concept. So, I'm curious, I mean, what are the kind of the lead times for an operation like Brandix to produce something like that for a customer like Zara or someone else? I'm sure if Zara is doing it, other people also have the same kind of requirements.
Navi, I'd like to approach that from a sort of global macro industry point of view, come down to local and take it from there. So if you look at our industry globally, we all wear clothes. But if you look at, you take men's products, for example, look at the shirt you're wearing. And I use this example everywhere I go. It's the same shirt, almost the same shirt that your father would have worn and your grandfather would have worn. In fact, the quality is inferior because if you look at the yarn that is used in it and the raw material that goes into it, it's actually inferior to what it was 75 years ago. Now, And the only value, so to say, to the consumer is in emotional content, in the storytelling, in the colors, and so on and so forth. Except for a few products. Take performance wear. There is substantial leaps in the product. And my argument is it didn't come from the clothing industry, it actually came from the performance industry. Now, if you look at the price of the product in real terms, the price has actually increased. Now, compare this with, say, mobiles, where the Motorola Brick, when it was launched, it had the feature of taking calls and storing 10 numbers in memory. And the net present value of that phone is around $4,000 today, if one were to compute. And for $400, you can get, what you can get. So mobiles have both functional value and emotional value in it. So the price has come down drastically. Clothing has gone the exact opposite way. Now, you'd assume that the retailers in this industry or the supply chain partners like us make substantial margin. We don't really. Majority in the world, high single digits. And if you look at the FOB to retail price, it's an equation of a 1 to 4. So there is obviously a lot of waste in the industry, because if the product is inferior, if the price has increased, and in between people don't make fat margin, there's obviously a lot of waste. And if you look at where that waste comes from, my argument is it comes from the way we operate. It's the model that we operate. Other than for the commodity category, in all other retailers, specifically the specialty retailers, about 30 to 50% of the product that is shipped into store is either discounted or destroyed. And clothing is one of the few industries you see when you walk on high street at the end of every season, because it's a 13-week selling period, right? 4 seasons of the year. The product is discounted. So a non-perishable product like clothing becomes perishable. Now, we don't see eggs and vegetables and fruit go on discount like that. We don't see meat and fish go on discount like that. But we see clothing go on discount like that. So essentially, most retailers, assume that this is what we'll sell, put it in the store. It's a guesstimate, because fashion forecasting is a very weak form of science or art, whichever way you look at it. So there is a substantial opportunity for social mobile analytics integration to assess trends, to test virtually interactive co-design. And some of this is happening, but in very small scale, because the mass of the industry is still, the development of this is very, very nascent. So this is one big opportunity. The second is the selling model is still substantially brick and mortar, retail store. Online sales has been increasing substantially, but the model is still very brick and mortar. And therefore, the marketing and selling costs in accessing consumer is still very high. So this is an industry that is waiting to be disrupted, and SMAC, in my view, will play a substantial role in this. It's not just in what I spoke of when to address what you asked about lead time. If you really look at how long it takes to make a product, in essence, in 48 to 72 hours, you can actually make a product. And you can make it mass scale. So if you really ask what should be the time to get a product from, say, order to a consumer, 3 to 5 should be the maximum. 14 is the fastest that we do of an order to retail store distributed across US. And that's like magic today, because it used to be 90 days 2 years ago. So 14 days is like, wow, you've changed the world, but it's still very inefficient, because it still adopts the same model of, air freighting product, etc. So it's an inefficient model waiting to be disrupted. And I personally think that, like what happened to photography, it will not get disrupted by people like us. It could probably get disrupted by people outside. There is supposedly 880 billion photographs being taken a year today, and none of those are Kodak moments. None of them are Kodak moments, because Kodak doesn't exist, right? And Kodak was what dominated this industry. If you look at us, what we're doing, we've adopted a three-pronged approach at a macro level. So we've looked at where will this disruption come and how would SMAC really integrate into it. One is how ideas will make breakthroughs, and we've got this entity which is very small, which is trying to foster startups. It's very, very early stages, called Disrupt Unlimited. So it is essentially crowdsourcing and building a startup ecology around clothing. The second is we've got an information-based organization called i3, which is working both in the industry and outside the industry. And for example, we're working with major clients like Mayo, because we see convergence between industries. So healthcare and clothing, as we already see, is a substantial convergence of industry. The third is in analytics, and what we've started was in very simple platform where we partnered with Accenture to take over our BPO operation. But the aspiration which we are working on is to set up a global center of excellence with Accenture on analytics for the industry. Now, these are sort of at a macro scale. At a micro scale, we have really no claim to fame on SMAC, because our penetration of SMAC within the operation, be it at employee satisfaction, be it at customer interaction, is minuscule. We've sort of scratched the surface, but it's very, very, very early stages, and we really can't talk much about it.
Thanks, Din. I mean, that was very enlightening and informative, to say the least. So just, I haven't got any questions from the audience, so here we go. Sorry. It's not on my iPad. Lakshmi, if you want to. Let me just refresh, see whether I can do that. So maybe we can take a question. Keith, there's a question there for you. My biggest fear is security. And this is kind of related to one of the challenges that we have. Often, I think security is sometimes used as a red herring as well as an excuse, in my experience. And the fact that Heather pointed out that when they did a survey, 7 out of 10 enterprise data centers were less secure than commercial providers. That further adds to the fact that there is a false sense of security, assumption being, well, it's within my four walls, so it should be safer than if it was in somebody else's four walls. Can you address the question from the audience on that one, Keith? And maybe Rohan, if you don't mind as well.
Sure. And I think, security is a big part of the whole social journey. And I think Heather covered it in her slide as well. I think you want to make sure that when you start down this journey, you really have a strong structure in the organization around security. And security is, there's been so much bad press about security, and there will continue to be security breaches. If you want to have a perfectly secure environment, then you'll batten down the hatches and you won't have any access either from outside or your clients and so forth. So I think, security is an interesting issue today, and I think the security narrative is now focused more on internal issues and breaches as opposed to external only. And so as you now provide all of these platforms for both your customers and your employees, you have to make sure that intellectual property is protected in organizations. And so you really need to be able to manage what information, what artifacts are going in and outside the boundaries of your organization. And I think that's a very critical piece, especially in our industry when you're dealing with intellectual property. But I think the often asked question is, and with the whole concept of the cloud, and if you think about companies today that offer email services on cloud, I think the only question you need to ask yourself is, hey, if a company is offering this email service to me on the cloud, are they in a better position to provide security, both physical and virtual, in a context, in a global context, than I can in my organization, right? And if you answer that question, then the only part that's left is what's that journey from my four walls in my office to that cloud? How secure is that tunnel? And you pretty much come to the point of view that given the strides in security and malware and virus and so forth, and it's moving rapidly away from a responsive, reactive industry to a much more proactive industry. So I think you will continue to see security breaches. You will have to open up your organization. You'll have to take some risk, but it has to be a measured and calculated risk. Otherwise, you won't be able to interact with anyone.
Agreed. Rohan, do you want to take a stab at that, or?
Yeah, Lavi. The cloud is perhaps the vehicle for delivering social, mobile, and analytics. However, perceptions on the security of the cloud is the biggest challenge that the C-suite faces today. So what exactly is this cloud? I think the IT fraternity, which includes myself, have done a big disservice by launching this thing called cloud. Right? Think of the C-suite, think of directors who have fiduciary duty. What does the cloud mean? Its name is enough to generate concerns. But in reality, the cloud in a different form has been there for maybe 40 years. Yeah, that's how old I am, a bit older than that. But IBM, EDS, what was then Anderson Consulting, and Digital Electric Corporation, which some of you might remember, they used to run these large data center facilities where large corporate customers used to use these facilities. These corporate customers included airlines, banks, insurance companies, etc. Companies with sensitive data. So 40 years ago, there was all this sensitive data sitting out in these data centers operated by third-party providers. So they were secure. Right? We didn't hear any horror stories. In fact, security was so tight even then. As a corporate customer, if you wanted to visit that data center, you had to get permission. And there was no guarantee that one of those data center providers would let you in. So they've always had very strong security measures, and security has been a focus because that's their business. If they didn't have security, they wouldn't get customers to their data centers. So maybe the term that we would apply to those old data centers was infrastructure as a service or platform as a service. Nothing new, 40 years old. So coming forward, we're also now seeing software as a service, again, on the cloud. Now, software as a service also has been around for at least 15 years, as far as I can remember. You may be aware of that famous CRM, Salesforce.com. Again, what sort of information goes into a CRM? Confidential customer information. It captures their behavior. It captures their interaction with you as an organization. It is out there on the cloud. And I don't think there have been any horror stories really on security breaches in commercial cloud operators. I know there have been breaches on more consumer type cloud operators, but not on those large professional cloud service providers. So if you look at security, I think the history and the record really speaks for itself. Now, looking at it a bit further, take a look at the guys in your IT department who look after your data and your systems and your servers, the administrators. Take a good look at them. These are very dedicated, loyal, and skillful staff. But if you did a security profile check on them compared to similar staff who might be in a large professional cloud service provider, I think you will find a gap, a big gap. So to simply say that because we have it in-house, it's more secure, is not really a tenable position. Right? In some cases, that will be, the answer is yes. In other cases, no. Then we have this other question about customer data. Can it be offshore? The reality is today we have multinationals, we have foreign banks operating in Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka customer information is overseas already. So there are new battles we need to fight here. We just need to look at it rationally and pick something for us which will work. And when we talk about security, we must take a long, hard, objective look at it, because sometimes having it internally may not be as secure.
So I'm cognizant of the time here. We got about 12, 15 minutes left here. So maybe two questions. Trihan, there was a question asked, I think, about you being a turnaround artist and whether, how you can leverage SMAC technologies vis-a-vis the legacy IT systems to turn around an operation. And then once you get done with it, maybe you had a question on how do you apply social to a largely rural, in your case, workforce, and how do you, enable that? And I think we had a pre-meeting conversation around that was quite interesting. So maybe those two questions, and we'll call it quits. Yeah.
Lavi, I think this SMAC provides again a great opportunity for us to in a turnaround situation where where companies have not sometimes kept up with the time. So we don't have the data centers, the server rooms, and the IT infrastructure to deal with. And sometimes those investments in IT that we had made in the name of innovation hold us back from moving to the next generation, because perhaps we haven't realized the value, the business value from those previous investments. But in a situation like this, we have the opportunity to leapfrog and go directly into cloud-based solutions and use SaaS models, software as service, so that we don't have to spend on large license fees, servers, data centers, and these things. So yes, we are looking at several solutions, be it Salesforce automation, be it inventory control and ERP. We get to deploy some of the more flexible versions of these, which then become scalable. As our business grows, we get to easily and conveniently scale up either our ERP solutions or our Salesforce automation solutions, or whatever it may be. And I think that's one of the ways that SMAC helps with IT infrastructure, and also the whole cultural makeover. And also many of these systems are becoming more user-friendly. So when you're talking about a culture that is less familiar with the legacy systems, our users don't have to put the effort in to become familiar with the older systems, which was somewhat cumbersome. Whereas the newer cloud version SaaS models are very user-friendly, the UIs are very convenient, and it's much easier to get users to adopt the new technology. And I think these are two of the benefits that we get to tap into through leapfrogging the technology.
Lavi, maybe a comment about, as we've talked a lot about the SMAC stack and the technology, I thought it might be interesting for the audience to understand, okay, what next? How does one, take all of this and try and bring it home to, start a program, start an initiative in their respective organizations? And I think that's a challenge in many ways. And predominantly because it needs to have CEO level sponsorship. I mean, if an organization agrees that making sure that the customer journey and the employee journey are most critical journeys, and they need to focus on that and adopt a much more millennial-like model, engagement model, then I think it's something that will become, a board level conversation, an initiative led by the CEO. And what we are seeing is that it's not traditionally run by the CIO function. We're finding that more and more organizations are creating a independent orthogonal function, predominantly led by the marketing function and the CIO function. And I think the marketing team and the group opens up the question about why not and why can't I, whereas the CIO function has to obviously maintain and ensure that all of the important aspects of a CIO function, including data security and so forth, are maintained. But the innovation is being driven by folk closer to the customers. And I think that's where you find that you gain a lot more traction. So it really becomes a cross-functional team led by typically a marketing organization or a transformational organization reporting directly into the CEO. And that's where we're finding that most of our customers have most amount of success when it's basically, it's a platform that we have to change and transform our customer journey and our employee journey, and what do we need to do to get there.
And it's really key, I think, Keith, because that does amplify the CEO sponsorship being a critical part to success. Yeah. Udena, would you like to take a step at that question and maybe wrap up for all of us in general? Because I think your challenges in bringing maybe Brandix to the forefront of SMAC innovation would be not very dissimilar to the journey of some of the members of the audience in adopting some of this technology. So maybe there are some lessons learned that you can impart or journey or steps you've taken to promote that that may be of value.
The question was specifically, I think, related to labor-intensive industry. Analogy before all the Superstar and Dreamstar programs came, nobody saw TV as a medium to unlock talent, right? Musical talent and dance talent and all of that stuff. So SMAC is something very similar, and where you don't see obvious opportunities, where the opportunity really lies. For us, there are multiple ways. We've got close to, say, 50,000 associates working in multiple locations across South Asia. The ability to access so far, up to now, communication is one way, and the ability to interact is a substantial opportunity. The ability to pick on ideas and build on ideas and take and pull innovative ideas and develop on it is another substantial opportunity. This is like this Indian program on the Honeybee Network, where Professor Gupta says, ideas at the periphery are not peripheral at all. And if you have to pick those ideas, you've got to go to the periphery. And SMAC Social Mobile gives us the opportunity to actually reach out to what is seen today as the periphery, where there could be big ideas laying there. So it gives a substantial opportunity. But as I said at the start, we've done very little, very, very little. So it's a substantial opportunity for us.
Well, maybe what I'll do is thank you for our distinguished and esteemed panel for, I think, a very fruitful discussion. I hope that's your assessment of this first keynote session. So thank you very much for all those questions that you sent across as well. Makes my job a lot easier. So to amplify a point that Keith made, according to Gartner, by 2017, the chief marketing officer will have a bigger budget than the CIO. So Rohan, spend it now. So I think this is a huge shift, paradigm shift that's happening across the board. SMAC is just an example of things to come or things that have come. There's also the Internet of Things, which is another area of innovation that's coming together. I'm sure there'll be a summit on that soon here as well. So as we progress down this path, I think we should probably take note of what Heather said at the end there. Take ownership. I think that's the key here. If you're inspired, and I think Udena and Keith also said this, the ideas are in the periphery. 9,000 virtuosans are all visionaries. So I think if you adopt some of those larger principles of SMAC, then SMAC will happen, because it's the people that will make this happen. It's not the technology, really. At the end of the day, technology is, let's face it, a tool, right? So it's the people. So let me finish on that note and thank the panelists and thank you for listening. Lakshmi?
Thanks so much, Ravi. So the message is clear. Your customers are expecting more, your employees are expecting more, and your value chain partners are expecting more. So what we try to do in the first session is lay the foundation for the rest of the day, for the rest of the 4 sessions. And this is a subject that, okay, you cannot discuss just in 30 seconds, so 30 minutes. But our intention is to, start that conversation. When we return, we are doing very well with our time. It's 10 o'clock now. We'll be back at 10:15. I'm going to ask two questions. First question is, how many of you think that your enterprises, your companies are customer-centric? And the second question is, if you are customer-centric, your organization is customer-centric, do you consider that as a distinctive advantage? Does it offer you a distinctive advantage? Those are the two questions we are going to ask before we start the next session. So ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure and a privilege to have a wonderful panel with us today. Heather, Udayna, Rohan, Keith, and Trihan joining us today in the opening panel and sharing your great views, experience with us. And thank you so much, Lavi, for your wonderful job sharing this session. Ladies and gentlemen, please thank our panel.
Platinum sponsor.
The happiness of coverage. The happiness of connectivity.
So please be here at 10:30.
The happiness of adventure.